All righty, welcome back from the episode of Two Plain Sports. Today is Monday, March 6th. It's just me and Brandon. Brandon is soon to be on the reoccurring every show, not a special appearance once a week. He's now going to be full-time here pretty soon, so we'll be welcoming him back from Space Force School, which will be good. Are you
Very
excited?
excited. Very excited. Can't wait. We are down to 4 days left. And
4
then
days left.
graduation. Hopefully get on a plane Saturday.
Hopefully you graduate. Wouldn't that be disappointing you
hopefully,
made it this
hopefully I
far?
don't screw it up this last week.
Yeah. So, all right. So, obviously, if you've been following us on Twitter and Instagram, you've been seeing a lot of tweets, a lot of stuff, a lot of great players were on campus this weekend, more than we're going to be able to talk about today. But we're going to be talking about some of the most elite and highlighting basically what happened this weekend. A lot of good stuff. Really, the ball's rolling in this 23 or not 23, 24 class. Good Lord. And hopefully we see a commitment here pretty soon. So we'll start with 2024 five-star defensive lineman Williams Nwaneri, 6'5", 245-pound kid out of Lee Summit, Missouri. Obviously, that sounds familiar because that's where Kaden Green's from. An elite defensive lineman. Came in, had a visit with Oklahoma. I think he's been on campus close to a half dozen times now at this point. So he's not a stranger by any means to Oklahoma or Norman itself. And then he had a good quote from On3. I feel like Oklahoma could be a place for me. It is a place I could fit in and become a successful player at. So obviously this weekend it went really well for Oklahoma, but it seems like he is obviously going to explore his options. I mean, he has a five-star. He has pretty much anywhere he wants to go, he could say, I want to go play for your school. And the school's going to be like, okay, no problem. So it seems like he's going to be hitting up LSU. I think Tennessee is on the agenda. There's some other schools that he's going to be going to here pretty soon. I think even Colorado potentially. Um, Obviously, there's going to be a lot of competition, but the amount of times he's been on campus, you have Kaden Green. You have to feel good. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, having Caden Green in our back pocket doesn't hurt. I get excited as a fan seeing that quote just because if you add a guy like Williams Nwaneri and then you think about the possibility of David Stone, then you look at the guys who are already there and Derek LeBlanc and PJ Adebawore is also in that Missouri area. That defensive line could be so good. And I think that's something that's definitely factoring into this kid's decision. When you're that talented, you want to play around other talented individuals. The thing with this quote that I'm kind of taking it just with a little bit of a grain of salt is you just mentioned it. He's a kid that can in the country, and when you're that good, you're not visiting Oklahoma State or these small, these not as talented as big programs. Everywhere he's gonna go, every visit he's gonna have is likely going to be very good. He's playing with some elite level players, elite level talents that are recruiting him. There's nowhere he's going to go where he's not going to feel the same way. Unfortunately, he's going to feel like he can probably get better anywhere he goes. I think it's going to come down to who we can get to pair him with. If I was him, that's what I would look at. That's what I would look at in making this decision. I would go with where I feel I have good enough talent around me to win. Because you're that guy pretty much. You want to play with other dudes who are there, and I think we've started that. We've got a pretty solid defensive line in place. I think if you add David Stone, um, I think Todd Bates can have a hell of a haul. I hope Caden Green, and I'm sure he is, but Caden Green get it done. I would love to see this kid become a Sooner. I think that defensive line can be so good going into the SEC if we get all the pieces that we talk about, or even half of them.
Yeah, you don't even have to go 100%. Even if just half the amount of talent that's truly interested, going 50% is great. And he's not going to Tennessee, at least here in the near future. It's Georgia and Texas A&M. And again, Texas A&M is going to be a thorn in our side. But talking about that defensive line and kind of in general, talking about David Stone today, which we're recording this on Sunday. So Sunday, earlier today, a coach that plays for coaches for Michigan State, Brandon Jordan, announced that he is leaving Michigan State to go coach for the Seattle Seahawks. And I wasn't really familiar who Brandon Jordan is, but I looked into it. He's the pass rush specialist at Michigan State, or he was, and he was an elite recruiter and took the lead role in a lot of recruitments. and it seemed like he was a leader or one of the main recruiters for David Stone, Xavier Sims. And losing him, you would think it would open the doors even more for Oklahoma. And then could Williams-Nwaneri realize that, hey, David Stone's really interested in coming in? Could you get an Xavier Sims? Could you add Nigel Smith? I don't know if you can get all four of those guys on campus. There is a chance, there is a world where it does happen. But even if you go 50% and say you go Williams-Nwaneri and David Stone, hey, that's a
exactly.
win. 50% honestly, just one of them.
Yeah,
just one of them.
I agree because the 23 defensive line class is pretty damn good. You get one of those guys, it's pretty good. Recruiting is crazy, man. You selfishly hope that David Stone was super, super close with this Michigan State pass rush specialist coach, Brandon Jordan. That you hope that they were boys, and that hurts. That hurts the Spartans, case. I know that Mel Tucker is doing a hell of a job there too in that pursuit. And then you hope that Oklahoma brings in the safety, his best friend. I can't think of his name right now. That only Michigan State had offered to. There's so many dominoes that you need to fall. But I mean, it's fun to follow.
It is really fun to follow, and really who the thorn in our side or Oklahoma side is going to be is Texas A&M. David Stone is obviously interested in Texas A&M. Seems like about everyone's interested in Texas A&M if you're an elite defensive lineman. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense other than, there is a potential payout. I don't know. I mean, at some point it's going to have to stop unless things start to change. But talking more about the defensive line, I only mentioned four of them. I don't want to leave Edrick Houston out of this equation either. He's a 2024 five-star defensive lineman out of Buford, Georgia, 6'3", 255 pounds. We haven't really talked about him a whole lot, but he visited Oklahoma this weekend. Seemed like it went really, really well. Todd Bates, going back to Georgia, that is a stomping ground for Todd Bates. It seems like Houston and Bates are really bonding. I know Chavis is involved, Venables is involved. Everyone's prioritizing him. So, I mean, you've got 3 5-star defensive linemen. Not saying that they're all three going to commit to Oklahoma, because that seems unreasonable and a little ridiculous to ask unless you're like Alabama. I mean, you would like to think that if you have 3 5-star defensive linemen genuinely interested, you would like to think you would land one of them. It seems like Edrick Houston is genuinely interested. Whether he's as interested as David Stone or Williams-Nwaneri, I'm not 100% sure. But the fact that he made the visit seemed like it went really well. You would like to think that Oklahoma's positioned to potentially host him again. And if he shows up on campus, then I'll start to feel like, okay, we've got a shot. But I really feel like there is going to be a 5-star defensive lineman in this class. And there is a world where 2 of them do play for Oklahoma in the future.
Yeah, shit. And like you said, if the world where all 3 come to Oklahoma, I think you can almost just stop the 2024 recruiting class. Just call it a day. Maybe get a couple more offensive linemen. We don't need anything else. We can finish with the 20th class or whatever based on 5 players alone. But you got 3 5-star D-line going into that SEC season in 2025. That's a lot to be excited about. I think the move to the SEC helps a lot with Edrick Houston being from the Georgia area. He will be guaranteed, or not guaranteed to play in Georgia, but close to it. If that pod with us playing Florida and stuff, I mean, I'm sure we'll get a lot of us. I mean, we'll definitely get SEC opponents. I mean, he'll be playing close to home. That helps. I love Edrick Houston because he's a wrestler. You guys know how I feel about that stuff. I think that translates really, really well to football, and especially offensive and defensive linemen. So that's the biggest thing I want about Edrick Houston. But yeah, man, you give me those three 5-stars, you can just stop the 2024 recruiting class, and Todd Bates can go on vacation the rest of until the season starts. He doesn't have anything else to do.
Go on vacation. But yeah, I mean, Edrick Houston, it kind of feels like, and maybe I'm just been a little out of touch or something, but it feels like it kind of came out of nowhere to some degree. I mean, I'm sure Oklahoma's been working on him for a long time and everything, but Oklahoma's seem like that they've put themselves in a great position. Now, naturally, you think Georgia's going to be a problem. You would think that Alabama would be right there. I mean, it's hard to think that being in that area, that those 2 schools and maybe even Clemson would really become a factor in this equation. So, my hopes and expectations are low, or my hopes are high, my expectations are low. But if he shows up on campus, hopefully they can get him back on campus for the spring game. You would like to start to think that there's some momentum there. and then maybe get him on campus one more time in the summer. I'm not sure what his timeline is for as a commitment, but like most of these kids, they're locking down their commitments by July, August, early August before their senior season starts. And I don't blame them locking in the commitment and being done with it. So
getting anybody on campus for the spring game, I think is huge for Oklahoma because I mean, there's not very many programs in the country that get 70,000 for a spring game, and I know we did that last year, and I don't see that changing. Brent Venables has all these fans excited, and I don't think that spring game attendance is going to drop. It's just cool to see 70,000 plus at a spring game, and I imagine as a player being like, man, all these dudes show up for a spring game like that. I think it says a lot.
It does say a lot. I mean, I think that Oklahoma is going to have a great spring game as far as visitors turnout, and hopefully, if they get a couple commitments rolling into that, which I'd imagine they will, there's going to be a lot of momentum. And talking about another elite defensive player.
Joel, quick segue into that, or a quick, whatever. How bummed are you that we can't go to this year's spring games?
I know. I was just thinking about that we're not going to be able to go. Unfortunately,
my brother decided to get married on spring game Saturday. So Brum and I have to attend that, which, wow, I don't know. I mean, it's better than him doing it during the real season, but still, like, he's not a big sports guy, but so he doesn't understand it. But it's a crime to do that shit. I think it's
in his defense, he scheduled the wedding before the spring game was announced. But you had to have known that it was going to be in this neighborhood.
It was in that neighborhood yeah.
But we'll have to catch some videos after the fact, and we'll have to show up for the 2024 spring game whenever we're getting ready to go in the SEC. So we'll make it up.
No weddings during football. Should be a rule.
I agree. It is a rule. We do not do that around here. So
if it wasn't my brother, I probably would skip it. I mean, I feel like I have to go to my brother's wedding, but like, I don't know my friends. But if it was like, yeah, if it was like, not that like somebody you're not very close with, fuck it. But I have to go.
You do have to go, and I have to go as well. So
yeah,
it is what it is. We're gonna be.
Your whole fam's going, right?
Yep. Yeah. So everyone will be there. So moving on, staying on the defensive side of the ball is another elite player, 2024 5-star defensive back, Kobe Black from Waco, Texas, made his trip up to Norman. I believe this is his first visit to Oklahoma. He's a little brother of a kid from Oklahoma State. He made his announcement that he was going to be in Norman on March 3rd. There seemed to be a lot of back and forth on whether he was going to go or not. Ultimately, he decided to go. Obviously, you like that if you're a Sooner fan. Again, he's going to have his pick of the litter where he can go. And, you would think naturally that Alabama is going to be a factor. Texas A&M, considering he's from Waco. There's going to be a lot of suitors. I'm not truly buying into Kobe Black being a Sooner until I see him come up for another unofficial. Can he come up for a spring game? Can he come up another weekend on his own dime and unofficially? Can we make that happen before an official visit happened? If that does end up happening, makes the trip up here, that's when I'll start to believe that he could be. Maybe I'm just being pessimistic just because of past experiences with elite defensive backs. I don't know. What do you think?
No, I'm with you. I mean, with all these kids we're talking about, it's an exciting show because these are all 5-star talents, all really, really good players. We're competing with the best of the best to land these kids' services. So it's fun. It's going to be tough. I agree. Jay Valai, Brandon Hall, what do you got? I mean, you guys they had a pretty good, I would say a pretty damn good first haul with getting Peyton Bowen. Obviously a 5-star talent there. You get a couple high 4-stars in Josiah Wagner, Jacoby Johnson. I think Jacoby Johnson's going to be really, really good. Eric McCarty, I think, is a pretty good kid, underrated kid. So they had a pretty good first haul. You can add a Kobe Black to the class. That's, keep it 1 to 2 5-stars a class. Even one 5-star class in the defensive back room, I think, is a huge win. Kobe Black, Connolly High School. You mentioned a defensive back. I think that's where he'd play for Oklahoma, but he's a kid that plays all over the field. These kids are so versatile. He played running back. He played receiver. kind of can do it all. Again, like you said, like we've said a bunch of times on the show, we're competing with the best of the best here. So I agree. It'd be nice to see him back on campus. It's tough to beat out Alabama's, Georgia's for receivers and defensive backs and stuff. So it's fun to talk about. I hope he can win. I'm just glad he's not going to Oklahoma State. He can tell Big Bro, I'm better than you already. That's always fun.
And I guess, there is some momentum there. Obviously, there was a little bit of, there wasn't much clarity whether he was going to go to Oklahoma or not. It seemed like there was some back and forth. The fact that he made the trip, he must be genuinely interested. And I mean, we can't really second guess Jay Valai and Brandon Hall. I mean, they've had the best haul as far as ratings go in a long time in the 23 class. So we can't really sit here and question them.
This season coming up, man, like we said before, is going to be so important. The Sooners have to show obviously a lot of improvement coming off the 6 and 7 year, but that's just not the standard. I think Oklahoma, I mean, Brent Venables is aware of that. It was a rough first year, but this season, I think if this team can show big jumps, 9-3, 10-2, we've talked about a Big 12 title, whatever. But if the defensive side of the ball can look good, play good, the team improves, I think that's when it's going to get exciting. Because there's a lot of exciting kids we're talking about, but they're 2024. So if Oklahoma goes back out there this season and goes 6 and 6, 7 and 5, and Alabama's doing what Alabama does, and Georgia's doing what Georgia does, I think it's going to hurt us.
I would agree. I think this year the defensive backfield is going to be very young. You're going to have Billy Bowman, Peyton Bowen, Gentry Williams, a lot of younger guys that are going to be playing in the back. I mean, I know Billy Bowman's been there a few years now, but you're going to have a lot of young, new players in that defensive backfield.
Woody Washington will still be a staple back there.
He will be, but you're going to see a little bit of a different rotation. And I mean, you have to, considering the product on the field last year. If it didn't change, I'd be more concerned. So
yeah.
Staying in that defensive backfield, we've talked about him a little bit. Jaden Hardy, 2024 4-star safety from Lewisville, Texas, made his visit up. He's a top 10 safety in the class. Seems like Oklahoma, this is one of the guys that Oklahoma's really locking in and targeting for their safety position in this 24 class. I'm sure they'll take 2 or 3. He tweeted out, he had a great time in Norman. He's played since he was a freshman. He's played well at Lewisville. It seems like Oklahoma, with how many visits he's been on campus, which I don't know how many, but I know it's been multiple times. There's a lot of momentum being in Lewisville, not far from Norman. I would imagine that Jaden Hardy's going to be a part of this class. And I think he's a great player. I mean, Alabama's offered him. You love the Alabama stamp of approval. What do you think?
I agree. I think as we go on with the show now from here on out, I think this is where we start to feel better and better as far as where Oklahoma sits with the kids that we're going to start discussing. Obviously he's got the stamp of approval, top 10 safety in the class. You can never go wrong with that, with either one of those statements. So I think that it shows again to what Brandon Hall and Jay Valai are able to do. They're getting shit done on their end. More the merrier. Let's hope this kid keeps visiting. Follow the visits. Hopefully we see a crystal ball or something coming soon.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he is one of the earlier commits. I know Texas A&M will be after him. I mean, I think you weren't on. I was talking with Jose. It seems like the school that we're going up against in most of these recruitments is Texas A&M's in them.
They're in on every single defensive line recruit. It's been annoying.
And defensive back and linebacker. I mean, anywhere in Texas. And granted, that's where we're prioritizing a lot of our recruitment is the state of Texas. So naturally, Texas and Texas A&M are going to be the 2 big players down there. But it seems like we go up against more Texas A&M than we do Texas, which is interesting. I mean, obviously, we go head-to-head with Texas in some recruitments, but it seems like it's always A&M.
Yeah, but I think the same thing can be said with Texas A&M. We've talked about their issue with the defensive line, that it seems to be a non-existent because they have so many 5-stars and so many elite talent there, but only someone who can see the field. I mentioned with Williams-Nwaneri, he's probably going to wait and see who he can pair up with. so it's a little bit contradictory of me to say it, but Texas A&M has too much at some point. All these kids can't play. I think that's going to hurt them at some point. And they also had a shit season. They were 5-7 last year. So I think if they, you know, take another plunge, it's the same thing like Oklahoma. I think both of those schools have to have a big jump if they want these kids to stay seriously interested.
You would think. I mean, at some point, you have to start winning. I mean, obviously, they lost a lot of people in the transfer portal for various reasons, whether it's playtime, off the field issues, other things like that. They lost a lot of good players as far as their star ratings were when they came in. So I don't know. I mean, at the end of the day, it is what it is. Oklahoma's going to win out on who they should win out as far as their character and everything. And I feel good about a lot of this. I know people are scarred from the David Hicks deal. At the end of the day, we put together one of the best classes Oklahoma's ever put together last year. So you just have to trust the process.
Yeah, trust the process.
So moving on, talking about, we already talked about Peyton Bowen a little bit, obviously being on the roster. His little brother, Eli Bowen, came up 2024, 4-star cornerback out of Denton, Texas, plays at Guyer High School. He's already got a crystal ball in favor of him going to Oklahoma by Parker Thune, which that was turned in forever ago. Eli Bowen's been up just as many times as Peyton Bowen. You know, whenever he would go up for the most part, he came with him. He's still going. I feel like if you know, we're going to talk about the Hawkins brothers here pretty quick. I feel like if Michael Hawkins pulls the trigger, joins the class, I think Eli Bowen, not the next day by any means, but I think within the month or two, I bet Eli Bowen jumps on board. I wouldn't be surprised if Eli Bowen jumps on board right around the spring game, maybe by end of April, early May. I wouldn't be surprised if he comes up for another visit or two. And at that point, he's got a few other commitments in this class to really get the ball rolling. I don't see Eli going really anywhere else in the amount of times he's been in Oklahoma. It's hard for me to even imagine him going somewhere else.
I agree with you. To me, it feels more like a shoo-in. Hopefully, unlike brother Peyton, it's a little bit easier of a recruitment to follow. Hopefully, Mama Bowen doesn't have as many reservations now as she did with Peyton, it seems. But I think the only way that Eli Bowen doesn't end up a Sooner is this, you know, Peyton just has such a horrible experience in year one. And he's just like, man, don't come here. This place sucks. But I don't see that happening. I think the team's going to play well in the field. I think him being there with Jackson's going to help. I don't think Peyton Bowen's going to have a bad time at all. His girlfriend plays on the soccer team. The only thing that I could see derailing this or not making Eli Bowen a Sooner is if Peyton has negative things to say, and I don't see it. Eli Bowen feels like a shoo-in to me.
And I want people to realize that he's not just been offered a scholarship at Oklahoma just because of his brother Peyton. And not that I think a lot of people think that. I mean, he's got offers from Arkansas, Cal, Colorado, Houston. He's got 23 offers, and he can play. He plays at Guyer, which is one of the better high schools. Obviously, we are all very familiar with Guyer. Offers from LSU, Oregon, Texas A&M, and Oklahoma. He can play on his own. Can be a contributor, and it'd be really cool to see the Bowen brothers in the backfield and defensive backfield maybe by 2025, 2026, somewhere in there. That'd be pretty cool.
Real cool. I agree. I mean, Peyton Bowen's we're definitely going to see soon.
Yeah. Oh, I think he plays this fall.
So do I.
Maybe not full time, but I think he plays a good chunk.
He'll be on the field. Yeah.
Yeah. So moving on, we're going to talk about another set of brothers, Michael and Malik Hawkins. So Malik Hawkins ended up receiving an offer from Oklahoma this weekend. He announced on social media. Quickly after that, Parker Thune put in a crystal ball in favor of Oklahoma for Malik Hawkins. He's a 2025 cornerback. He currently only holds offers from Arkansas, Texas A&M. Arkansas is because it seems like that, Arkansas was at one point recruiting Michael Hawkins, offered Malik. Not saying that Malik can't play. I mean, it's 2025. There's plenty of 2025 kids that are still being evaluated and still being offered. But obviously, Oklahoma feels comfortable with Malik, and I think it's a committable offer. I feel like after this weekend, with this offer, and I'm not saying that he wouldn't have gone to Oklahoma. It's not like TCU's offered Malik. And TCU seems to be the biggest, I guess,
Yeah.
roadblock here. I think this visit up to Oklahoma, I think this pretty much seals the deal. I think Michael Hawkins, who's the 2024 four-star quarterback, is the quarterback in this class. I know Jose is more pessimistic about it. I feel like there's a lot of momentum. I don't think he commits tomorrow or anything, but I bet it's in the next 2 weeks. I'm going to say it's next 2 weeks by mid in a March, somewhere in there. I think he's going to pull the trigger, become the leader of the class, and start the commitment dominoes so we have momentum going into the spring game. What do you think?
I agree. And their legacies. I mean, their dad played defensive back at Oklahoma. So they probably grew up at Sooner games, being Sooner fans. I think that, I mean, that obviously helps. I agree with you with Michael Hawkins being, I think, the quarterback of the class. I have my doubts on, I kind of like the way Muleshoe did quarterbacks, doing it every other year. I can't stand Muleshoe, but I liked that process. Just because I don't know if Michael Hawkins ever sees the field at Oklahoma with how this works, being as talented as he is. Michael Hawkins is a damn good football player. I really think so, and I would be excited to have him. But it's hard to tell a kid that good to sit that long, and I think he would be sitting behind Jackson Arnold for a decent amount of time as long as Arnold decides to be there. So that is what it is. Malik Hawkins, damn good football player. Hopefully we get him. I would be more excited about the Malik Hawkins in this case. I think Malik Hawkins has a better chance of impacting the play on the field as a Sooner. I think he would have a better chance to see the field. So I'm more excited about Malik Hawkins. But I agree with you. I think Oklahoma sits very well with both of those kids, and I think both will end up as Sooners.
The only downfall is doing the quarterback every other year is what happens if a quarterback doesn't pan out. I mean, obviously, if a five-star quarterback more times than not will pan out to at least be good. Might not be elite, but they're at least good. And this way, I mean, we saw whenever you don't have great quarterback depth, we know what that's like. I mean, we've obviously, if Dylan Gabriel got hurt last year, Oklahoma was bad.
But then you saw Oklahoma loses out on Nico Evers, I think, because of it. I think I don't know. I think Jackson Arnold played a big factor into Nick Evers departing. But it is what it is.
I agree. I mean, it just depends on, maybe it just is the thought of you're recruiting a five-star over the top of me. I'm out, and maybe Michael Hawkins is there waiting in the wings because, God forbid, I mean, injuries happen, and hopefully nothing ever happens to any of these quarterbacks. But, unfortunately, that's just a part of the game. And maybe Michael Hawkins is just, I can get developed. I spend 2-3 years, probably 3 years total. And I get my time, and all I really need is one great season. I mean, that's what it takes anymore. You can have one great season.
Kyler Murray is the the prime example of that, obviously, going number one overall after one season. But there's not a whole lot of Kyler Murrays out there.
No, but for every Kyler Murray, there's also a Daniel Jones that has one really good year and goes top five.
Mitch Trubisky. No, Mitch Trubisky was good for a minute.
I mean, but it's just it's just the nature of the beast. I mean, and you look at Anthony Richardson right now. I mean, Richardson, he's going to get drafted in the top 5 based off of his measurables and the potential of him. I mean, it's crazy what the quarterbacks can do.
Saw him make a deep throw at the combine, which Anthony Richardson, he does look good, but they're throwing on air at the combine at the end of the day. And he threw a deep ball it was pretty, and the oohs and ahs are out there. But again, I feel like most college quarterbacks can make a deep throw on air and look good in shorts and a t-shirt.
I mean, who looked good in shorts and a t-shirt? Zach Wilson.
So how about Jamarcus Russell? Looked fantastic. 80 yards on his knees, guy.
Yeah, there's always one or two quarterbacks that get pulled up. I mean, you look at Trey Lance, you look at Zach Wilson. There's always a handful of quarterbacks. If you just have the measurables and you have a good arm and you can look good.
True.
I don't know. I
think it's asking a lot of a kid. If you're good like Hawkins, to sit and just bank on one season when you can go elsewhere and start.
What'll be really interesting is in the 2025 class, who they identify and who they're actually in a really good spot for. If they lock down another 5-star quarterback, at that point, it might just be like, I'm out. I mean, that's kind of what happened to Nick Evers. You 4-star, then a 5-star comes in. Could that happen? Or maybe does Oklahoma only take another 3-star or something? I don't know. It is interesting going down this road, but you look at programs like Alabama. I mean, Alabama will pull in 4s and 5-stars every year at quarterback, and you don't start, then you can go look elsewhere. So
I mean, they had what, Mac Jones, Jalen Hurts, and Tua Tagovailoa on the same roster. It's pretty
yeah,
scary.
so I don't know,
Although
but
Mac is shit.
Mac's good. Mac will be fine. Mac will be fine. So, do you have an individual challenge?
Yeah, let's just go back to the whole wedding debacle. Obviously, it's a spring game. Obviously, we're going to be there. Bro and I are good people. But yeah, I think that weddings during a football game or during football season should be a crime. I think you should prioritize this stuff when you're doing your big day. Have any of y'all ever missed a wedding due to a Sooner football game, or been tempted to miss a wedding due to a Sooner football game, or have actually gone to said wedding, but the whole time maybe you're sneaking out back every 20 minutes or so to do a score check or watch the game from your phone? Because I know that happens, and I don't blame y'all. I think you're smart for doing that.
Oh, I've done the whole phone deal where I'm sitting there watching the game on my phone. I mean, have to go, but I'm sitting there just with my phone, right, just
Just
hiding
plan
it.
better,
Yeah.
people.
So, all right, you made it this far. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, turn the notification bell on. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Apple, Spotify, and TikTok. Everything's linked in the description below. And remember, when you are listening to us on Apple or Spotify, when you leave a review, it helps us out a lot. And be sure to catch us Wednesday. So Jose should be back. Brandon won't be, but Brandon will be on our show regularly here within a
In a
week.
week.
So
Yep.
we'll catch you guys next time.